What's up, y'all? Welcome to Worldly Church Girl Live. It's your girl, your host, Lillian Harshaw. Let's address the elephant in the room. What in the world is Worldly Church Girl? Worldly Church Girl Live is just like the podcast. Uncut, raw, unfiltered conversations with kingdom-minded people who are sharing their life stories, how they overcame for God's glory. So sit back and relax and enjoy Worldly Church Girl Live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Worldly Church Girl Live. It's your girl, your host, Lillian Harshaw. I almost did it again, y'all. I don't know why I can't get my days straight. I was about to say it's Friday. You know, whatever. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So it's Tuesday. And I'm so glad to have you all back for another episode. And we got a great show today. He actually been on my podcast before, but his story is so unreal and a miracle within itself that I really needed him to come back. And I was just honored and blessed that he said yes to do it. And he's just an awesome guy. And yeah, when y'all hear this story, y'all not ready for this at all. So it gives me great honor to bring to the floor Sir Rocky. I want to call you Sir Rocky now.
It sounds all right. How you
doing? How you doing tonight?
Doing very, very well. Blessed. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. And again, I'm so glad you are on here today because, like I said, your story it don't even seem real. It sounds like a movie plot, like somebody made it up. But it happened, and you definitely overcame it all. And like I said, and for you to even to share it with the world is even more miraculous than anything else. So I want to get right into it. I want to start with well, first tell everybody your name first, because I have a hard time pronouncing it because I wasn't going to even attempt it. So
my real name is actually Vikram Singh Kandola, but I go by Rocky. I've been called Rocky since I was a baby. Just before I was born, actually, my grandmother nicknamed me Rocky. She didn't speak English very well, and then she saw me rocking around like in my mom's stomach, and that Rocky movie was coming out, so I was like, rock, 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 and then Rocky came. So,
and I'm a huge Rocky fan. I mean, anytime Rocky's on TV, I'm there. Love me some Rocky, and I'm talking about the whole series, not just one, all of them, including Creed. So, since we're talking about your childhood, I want you to share a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah, definitely. So, my parents were born in India actually, and they migrated over here a couple years before I was born. I was born in '86 in the Bronx, New York. And yeah, so I was born into my parents' family in New York. There was my grandmother, a lot of family living around there. And the Indian families, especially ones that are first generation coming overseas from India, they kind of tend to stick together in those same areas. And you see that a lot with like different cities like Chinatown, in different places like that. Mm-hmm. However, my father got an opportunity in down south, Mississippi, and took it for his career and brought us down there. I believe I was maybe 4 years old, 5 years old, the oldest, and kind of started us in schools down there. So a lot of my early childhood was kind of spent, not around any Indian family or any people, and not really understanding, or just kind of getting confused about, who I really was and my identity, and as a child, being different than everybody in your school, kind of, it was a lot of like sly remarks and stuff, as I got further into school and things like that. Until, eventually, as we spoke about, I, started getting in trouble. First at home, my father wanted me to, as an Indian good kid, to like stay home, study, be with the parents all the time. And I was, unlike my brother and sister, just very outgoing, wanted to be outside. I would talk back really quickly, and I want to spend the time outside of the house. At that age, it was just, playing with other kids, playing tennis, just being out and about. So the first time I was, finally sent away, which just began a pattern of being sent away over 9 high schools, in 4 different countries since the age of 11. The first time in India, and India, looking back as an adult, was actually a beautiful experience. However, being an 11-year-old kid getting taken away from your friends and family, It was definitely tough, and it was definitely something that I didn't want. I remember the only thing I really remember before leaving was being in the airport with my mom and my dad there. My dad was taking me. My mom just kind of being a little bit kind of somber and sad, and just gave me a wallet as a gift. You'll be okay. And I didn't really know I was going to 100% be just sent there and left. And then my dad kind of brought me there, put me in an apartment nearby our family. And I still in the back of my mind as a kid, I'm like, he's not leaving me here. I'm not about to be here.
Right.
And then he left, and I spent the next 6 or 7 months there going to public school, and just going on adventures. At that point in time, I was I think 11 or 12 at the oldest, and I would hop on buses and trains and go all the way across the country, scare everybody half to death, and go for a tennis tournament. So a lot of freedom, but as a kid, you just miss home and things like that.
Right. So there was a point in your life where you were sent off to a boot camp, right?
Twice.
Twice. Can
Yep.
you share the experience with everyone? What that was like?
Definitely. So upon getting back from India, I started in a school down there, and I was maybe 12 or 13, and my father taught me how to drive by this time. I would drive with the family, and I was a big kid. And I eventually started sneaking his car out in the evenings. One of those times I had my little brother with me and a friend with me, and we actually got pulled over on the way back from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, coming to Pascagoula, Mississippi. And the police officers, they knew my father and they called him. And the next couple of days, I was really big into tennis. I was supposed to be going off to a tennis camp in near Louisiana, near New Orleans. And instead, I was on a flight, to Baja California, Ensenada, Mexico, to a boot camp that my father had found, I believe, like in a newspaper. Those ads you see every once in a while, like troubled teen having problems.
Right.
With call us. We'll save your family for you. And he was busy getting his career started, so he didn't really know exactly what he was getting into. However, these programs and these boot camps were called the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs. The one that I went to in particular in Mexico was called Casa by the Sea. And there's tons of information, well, not tons, there's a decent amount of information out there on Google and YouTube about it. So if you check it out, you'll see that they were eventually closed by the Mexican government for child abuse, torture, rape, even death and suicide. So these boot camps are crazy. When you get there, either you get there escorted by your parents, or these two tall men come and take you there. The first time I got escorted by my mother. The second time I went when I was 17, I got woken up in handcuffs, my hands and feet cuffed, and escorted across the country there. Yeah, and
Oh my God.
yeah, that's just like the iceberg. That's the tip. There's not really there. It goes so much deeper. When you get there, if you're with your parents, they're going to talk all night. They're going to introduce your parents and say hello to them, and they'll get taken behind the back room. Once you get taken back behind that back room, it's almost like the entire movie changes. The lights get dim, the walls get dirty. There's no paintings, there's no decoration. You start hearing screaming and yelling, and immediately your clothes are ripped off. All your belongings, whatever you did have with you, is taken away immediately, and you said they tell you that you're not going to be able to see this ever again until you leave here. Your head is shaved, and you start getting grabbed and pushed, really roughly. The first 10 nights, you're going to sleep on the ground in a long hallway full of kids. All night long, you're going to hear crying, screaming, staff screaming at kids, some kids yelling back, some kids crying. Your mind just kind of wanders as to what's happening right now, in these walls behind me. So for the first couple of nights, you're in a shock. And that's what they want to do. It's kind of built on, even the way our American prison systems try to shock people and kind of use the whole experience as a quote unquote punishment versus any kind of rehabilitation. And then you get kind of put into a structured day where school for them is you don't have teachers. You just read a textbook, and in the back of that textbook, how they have the pages of tests, this is chapter 1 quiz.
Yeah.
You take those tests, and that's how you actually graduate, by taking those tests, once a week and taking that 2 hours, 3 hours a day during school time to read the chapter and learn about it. From there, it's a total brainwash mind game. We're not allowed to talk to any people next to us. We have to raise our hand to stand up, to sit down, to use the restroom. There is no speaking allowed unless you're speaking to staff. After the first 3 days at the one I went to first in Mexico, you were actually not allowed to speak English anymore.
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't want, some of the staff didn't understand English as well, and they didn't want children talking and like trying to make run plans or anything like that. The food was just garbage, the same thing every week, which we were forced to eat 70% of it, or we'd have these consequences. And the consequences there were basically like time added on to an indefinite sentence. So, if you talked to that permission, if you stood up with that permission, you would just add on time, basically.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's one part that's crazy, just because like you already don't know when you're leaving, and they're telling you like, hey, you don't know when you're leaving. The worst case scenario or the best case scenario is when you're 18, you'll get $50 and a bus pass and put on the border of the U.S. and Mexico, and be told to live your life. And as a 12, 13-year-old, that's infinity. That's like you can't even fathom that much time. My first time getting a consequence there, we have to watch these videos on the History Channel and like take notes on them.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about like the Doomsday, some war, and in that war there was a date, February 14th, which is my birthday, that ships came back into harbor, and it was maybe my second or third week there, so like the not talking at all thing, so that hadn't really went in my brain yet, and we're all sitting there, all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's my birthday. I said it out loud by accident, and boom, like I was sent to a place called Worksheets first. Worksheets where you like sit on the edge of your chair and steel chair, back straight, and listen to audiobooks from like Tony Robbins and all the audio speakers, and just write. And you have to write left to right the full page until like your 4 or 6 hours is up. And the second time I went actually to that place, I was sick, and I was like crying, and I was like, please, like I don't feel good, like I'm sweating, someone come help me. So finally one of the dorm fathers, which is what they're called, the staff that watched us, they radioed to administration and said, can you come see what's going on with this kid? So the guy that walked in was Jason Finlinson, and crazy story, but after I got out of this place, and tell you the rest of this, the place I got sent to at 17 where my hands were cuffed, Jason Finlinson was actually the head administrator at the next place after this place got shut down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he came in and he grabbed me by the shoulder, picked me up, threw me into the wall behind me, and kicked me down the hallway and hog-tied me, which hog-tied is basically you lay on your stomach, chin on the ground, and your hands and feet are tied together behind your back. And that's where I spent the next like couple of days, maybe more than that. They'd only let you out once a day to eat rice and drink orange juice. And that's it. And that was not something that just happened to me. That was probably the light end of a very common punishment for any kind of rule violations at that in particular facility. And for the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, that is the way they deal with any disrespect, any rowdiness, anything at all. And these schools are marketed to have A1 food, great counseling, great medical care. The kids are going to get help and this and that and accelerate in school. And unfortunately, none of that could be further from the truth. It's all a blatant lie, and the parents are manipulated as well into believing that that's not happening. And on top of that, they tell the parents that your kids will try to lie to you and manipulate you, so they don't know what's going on. So when you write letters home, they'll actually like redact and black out a lot of your letters, or they'll say, hey, you got to rewrite this. You can't say this in your letter to your parents. So
I was just about to ask you, did your parents have any idea any of this was going on?
So I remember when I got back, I actually told my parents a little bit of what happened, and they kind of didn't believe me. I mean, and honestly, it's hard to believe right now. It's hard sometimes when I say it. I see other people look at me like, are you serious? Like, are you sure that happened, man? Like, I'm just like, yeah, they're my memories. I remember them quite clearly. It's pretty traumatic events. But when I told them, at that point, when I was at the age I was, and I was, talking back to them quite frequently, and they didn't like that. They didn't really, believe me. So they actually sent me to the same program 3 or 4 years later, like I said, with the same guy running it. And that program was same thing, Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs, except it was instead of Mexico, it was on the border of the U.S. and Canada.
Wow. And from that point, okay, so after you came back home and you were home for good, I mean, what was your next step after that? What happened to you then?
So it became a pattern. After India, then Mexico, from 11, 12 to 17, when I finally got to the last one, Every 6 months, I was in a different facility or different program. I eventually started getting in trouble in school as well as with police. When I got out of Mexico, I got sent from Pascagoula High School or Pascagoula Public Schools to a private school in Alabama. This school in Alabama, UMS Wright, no one really knew my family there. So my father's like position in the society didn't really mean anything. And that was the first time I kind of found out that, hey, like I'm very different. I'm not like most of the kids there, like a normal like white kid that's, getting the privilege of whatever they are having there. And they're telling me that, like my headmaster at school, I wore a FUBU sweatshirt one day and he's like, Rocky, stop dressing, or why are you dressing like a NIGGA, like straight to my face and like casually, which back then it didn't even register, what he really was saying. Like racism was a thing that like it existed obviously, but it wasn't like right now we have people like standing up for other people, fighting back, putting stuff on social media. Back then in Alabama, it was just like it would happen and it wouldn't be talked about and you wouldn't really hear anything about it much. So I just I didn't brush it off. It definitely hurt me. But as an adult, it's crazy. 20 something years ago, I still clearly remember like what I was wearing, the shirt, the sweatshirt I was wearing, which hallway I was in, how he said it, how he turned back and looked at me and said it. And that was just one comment that really stung because it was from the headmaster. And the comments from the kids in the school, were just, I actually got kicked out of that school because a kid called me a sand M-word. And I told him if he said that again, I would kill him. And I'm 13 years old, so I'm just like mad. Like obviously I wasn't good. But they kicked me out of school, a couple of days later for that. And then from there, when I got kicked out of there, I got bounced around to these little like one-on-one schools for a minute and the timeline is a little bit hazy now because like it all happened. So like it was 6 months at home and then 6 months at a different facility. I got sent to a military school, I believe, in Atlanta. That was a crazy time as well. That's kind of like where I guess like for when I talk to the guys, like that's where I kind of learned how to defend myself for the first time in my life. It was a bunch of guys in dorms without as many rules as boot camp, so it was just fighting all day long. We had fight clubs where we'd all like pack 15 deep into a room. They would take bets, and I was the biggest. I believe I was a sophomore at that time. I was the biggest sophomore, so they always get me to fight the seniors that were like huge, and they would just love to see me get beat up by the seniors. I kind of held my ground as much as I could, and just kind of learned to swing, in here and there. I was always like a very like calm, like quiet, like happy-go-lucky type. I didn't fighting like was the most fighting I would do was like words and arguing. I wasn't really like a come after you and swing type of person. After military school, that pretty much changed. I became one of those like, okay, I know what I can do now. I know that if someone bugs me, I can kind of handle myself at least, to some degree.
Right.
And I did good there. I had great grades. All throughout high school, I had great grades. My dad wanted me to stay there. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be in a boarding school. I wanted to be at home, So he took me from there to a Catholic boarding school. I was coming up on a junior now. Spent some time there. Eventually got kicked out. My science teacher, I used to write rhymes and lyrics, and my science teacher like ripped out of my hand one day, and I got up and yelled at him, and they told me to leave that school. It was actually a big ordeal. Like police came to our dorms and like the dorm fathers. The thing is, people don't get like at these boarding schools, like their parents don't get usually is like, yeah, they're good places. Yeah, the kids can act a certain way, but like when they don't behave, right? When a kid like me who's doing well in grades, who plays sports, doing well in sports, who also has a quick mouth and a sharp tongue and talks back,
right?
Those don't have that type of training, and they don't know what to do, especially a larger sized kid. Like I was probably close to 6 foot by then. Besides like resort to some type of threatening or violence. And as a hot-headed, hard-headed kid, like that doesn't faze me. I've been to boot camps, military schools. I've been to jail at this point already in my life. I'm not going to back down, at all. I'm also not violent to the type where I'm going to, grab something and throw it and hit you, but I'm not going to back down. And that was what, eventually led me to having to get kicked out of that school. And I guess at that point, my dad was like, you know what, he's whatever, let him come home to Pascagoula Public High School again, where nobody had seen me in 3 years. I just disappeared for 3 or 4 years and got sent around to all these schools. And I came back all of a sudden. And everyone's like, whoa, like, we haven't seen you since, middle school, since, like 8th grade or something when you left. And
you're back, you 6 foot tall with a mouth.
Exactly. I just wanted to be cool. I wanted to like hang out with like, the people that everyone thought was cool, like date girls and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of started, that's when I first started getting into like, okay, let's party, let's have some drinks. At this point, I don't think I really drank or got drunk or anything like that, but I wanted to at that point. I wanted to like really like party, like, do different things and experiment and leave the house, not to go drive in circles or get food, but to go to a different state and, get a fake ID and see how we can party there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I actually got pulled over for the first big arrest. I got arrested on the way back from Florida spring break when I was going to that high school. The 2 other kids who were with me, the one that was driving, they all got slap on the wrists, probation, like unsupervised and let go. Me, that's when I got woken up in the middle of the night, handcuffed, feet cuffed, and sent to the boot camp in the border of Canada in New York, where the same guy, Jason McPherson, was. Same program, head shaved, clothes off, structure, not really good food, no real teachers, no real counselors. And that's where I graduated high school with what we found out 3 years later, a fake diploma, because the school was not even accredited, actually.
Stop it.
Yeah. So luckily I got accepted into college before that came up, right before the school. It went back and the state of New York said, no, this is a not accredited school. We're not going to, nobody's going to be allowed to have a diploma from here. It's not accredited. Luckily, I'd already got into college at that point, and so I didn't need it anymore. But if someone were to like look back and see like in my records right now, like, hey, did this guy graduate high school? I don't have a high school diploma. So
that's crazy. And then when you got to college, what was your major in college?
So I started with pre-med. And I guess I should back up and say, when I got to college, I was still 17. My parents brought me to college in our hometown of Mobile, Alabama. And I had like a chip on my shoulder. I was ready. I was a man, 17 and a half. I was like, no one can tell me anything. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. If that's drugs, violence, partying, girls, whatever, like I'm out here. I'm going to do whatever I want.
Right.
And that's what started me from 18 until 22, got in the path of like selling drugs, doing drugs, fights, constantly being robbed and robbing other people. Everything all in between there. Anybody that is listening, what the street life is like. There's not one part of it that I didn't jump into head first. And that was my identity. I was like, you know what? This is who I am. I've already been called a bad kid, in trouble. I've already been in jail. I've already been to boot camps. This is who I am now, and I'm going to go ahead and embrace every bit of it and be the best this person I can be. I mean, I got in trouble for having like guns on campus, for traveling to New York with sawed-off shotguns, all kind of misdemeanors for possessions, until finally I caught my like big boy charge, which was a distribution of controlled substances charge with the feds, the state, the local police all did like a sting operation, followed me for some time and made an undercover purchase from me. And that's when I actually went to Alabama State Prison, did time there in prison a couple of years, as well as jail, and then inpatient rehab and house arrest. And they gave me like the worst. Like I don't know how many lawyers I had. My dad paid for a bunch of lawyers. And I ended up with pretty much the worst sentence that a first-time offender at a young age could get for the same charge and the amount of the substance that I had. I remember I was in prison, there's a dude next to me that had the same sentence I did, which is a 10 years split 3 to serve, for being drunk on a motorcycle and killing somebody. He had the same exact time as I did.
That's crazy. I mean, we know why you got it, but yeah. What? I mean, it's the truth. We know why you got such a tougher sentence. But now, was this before or after you got shot or shot at?
So when I got shot, I have to rewind back to when I was like 13 when I got shot at.
That was at 13?
At 13 or 14, yeah. At the oldest. That was back in Mississippi. It was actually a basketball game that me and a buddy of mine were playing. We made a bet on, and that we didn't want to honor the bet, so we ran. And the guys shot at us over our head. Like I don't think they were trying to hit us. They probably could have hit us if they wanted to, but they definitely scared us. And like, well, I guess we were kind of scared, but we were more excited. I know it's like sounds crazy, but that age, like we're just like, oh man, like we got.
Yeah, I thought y'all some real thugs then.
Exactly.
We earned our stripes. What?
Seriously.
Okay, so I know you was shot at and you was stabbed. Now, did you actually?
I actually got stabbed.
Okay.
So this was a road trip to South Florida with a buddy of mine and my brother, and we're on the road, and it was kind of like a road rage situation between me and somebody else, and eventually pulled into a gas station, and I don't think we knew that people were still behind us. So my buddy was like counting some money in his lap or something like that, and our windows were both open, and the guy kind of reached in the car, and I kind of like grabbed his hand and tried to hold him, and he had a butterfly knife, like one of those ones you flip out and switch like this, stabbed me right here in the arm. Pretty deep stab. I have a decent scar on my side. But I was also intoxicated. So I kind of laughed it off even that night. The police came to our hotel the next day and like said, we saw the footage. We saw you, like I actually hit the guy with my car and then made it back to the hotel. And they're like, we saw the footage. Like, we need you to go to the hospital. Like, you're bleeding right now. I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. It's okay. This was only, I think I was 24, maybe 23, 24 at this point. And once again, the timeline, I'm hazy on it. I don't remember the exact times. If I actually look back and ask my dad, he probably knows the timeline much better. But I didn't get it. I went to the hospital, and to this, just a couple of years ago, so they were chasing me for a $700 hospital bill. And I was like, no, I told y'all not to do anything. All y'all did was give me a Band-Aid because I asked you not to clean it, not to do anything to it.
Right.
I even recorded it because I was like, no, I don't have health insurance. Like, I'll get it done in my dad's office. Just chill. So I drove back to Mississippi, like 10-hour drive, and then my dad like stitched it up and put some cleaning stuff on it. And
they still charged you.
No, well, the hospital charged me.
Yeah.
They chased me for a good 10 years over that, and we didn't pay them. We're like, no, we didn't. I got a Band-Aid. I'm like, oh, this is not. I'm not paying charge for a Band-Aid. That ain't nothing. No one took me there. It's just, and that's honestly the state of our healthcare system. I mean, it's ridiculous. So,
absolutely. Now, okay, then look, and then this happened. Okay, you had over 20 major surgeries, and you were like kicked in the face several times too at one point.
I skipped that part. So before I went to prison, actually, sorry.
I didn't mean to laugh, but it's just like
it was a lot.
This is a Netflix series, but okay.
Yeah. So I was on house arrest. I had an electronic monitoring bracelet on. I'd already caught my charges, but they hadn't sentenced me to prison time yet. And I was also graduating high school or college at this time. So I was trying to finish up my degree, get my degree done. And one of the classes I had to take was a music class. It was just like one of those ones you just had to take it. And in that music class, one of the things we had to do was go to an opera. So I got permission from my probation officer on house arrest to go to the opera downtown. And we went down there, and on the way back, we stopped at a bar. So another part of what I was doing at that time, I would do club promotions, right? I would get people to come inside clubs. I would get people to sign up for wristbands and make a deal with the bartender or the owners and get a percentage of the bar, get a percentage of door sales. Some of like rivals or like, people that work in the same industry were at the bar that I visited that night. And this was like a big court case as well, in the city. But they picked me up and threw me into a concrete sidewalk where my entire jaw was crushed. All these teeth, these are all fake, actually. All on this side is all fake. They had to take a piece of bone out of my head and put it in my jaw to build my teeth back up. And then every other tooth in my mouth was like root canals, damage, plates, and everything. So the only 4 teeth that actually were real are these right here in the middle. I have like wires in my jaw from here to here, plates all right here holding it together. The doctors did an absolutely amazing job, like, because they said, like, when I first came in, it was like a jumble of bones, and they don't know how they're going to put it back together, basically. But yeah, that process started maybe 3 years of just surgeries, 4 years maybe of like surgeries, of pulling my gum line up, of re-breaking my jaw, of opening my head and putting bone inside my mouth from my head, putting bone from my hip inside my jaw as well, building my teeth back up and fixing all the broken ones. In fact, during all this is like when I was actually graduating from college, got my degree during all this, like during this time. and got accepted into, graduate schools as well. And also, at the same time, I was kind of still pretty rebellious, well, very rebellious. And I was going to Mexico and smoking weed and partying still. I'd have big parties at my house. And I was on, I wasn't on probation or anything at this time. I didn't feel like it was justified or, within my rights. I was against my rights to, perceive me as guilty until they actually called me guilty. And that day was in court. So I kind of did what I wanted to do. And one of those things I did during all this was went to Mexico. And mind you, at this time, I only had half my teeth. So I'm like walking around with like half my teeth while I'm out.
Oh, my God.
Just doing all this stuff. But yeah, I went to Mexico and my probation officer found out. And, I'm on a drug case. So they think that like, oh, this dude's like doing this, doing that, moving drugs, something.
Mhm.
So I said, you know what? We're sending you to prison right now. No matter what's going on, no jail, no house arrest. We're going to go ahead and give you a 10-split-3 sentence means that you could have a chance not to go to prison the first 3 years, or you could go after the first 3 years, depending on what the judge and everyone wants to do with you. I didn't really think that they were going to give me any leeway or any kind of leniency anyway, and I didn't give them a chance to on top of that. So eventually they sent me to prison with half my teeth missing. So while I was in prison, like every day I would bleed because it was just mesh metal on my mouth, and it would stink.
Right.
I'm bleeding all day, so people would be like, "Yo, what's wrong? Why your teeth smell?" You know what I mean? I'm like, man, like, look, like there's nothing here. It's all bleeding. Finally, when I moved from maximum security to medium security, which they put me in max security because the excuse was that they had to have a doctor around at all times, and only the medium and maximum security prisons have doctors. So I stayed in medium and max,
Okay.
like Ventress and Kilby and stuff for most of my sentence until finally I got sent to a work release facility, like a Red Eagle, a camp facility, basically. And one day I was there, I was working on the interstates and stuff. My metal popped right out of my mouth. So I had to go have emergency surgery from prison. And that was a whole different experience, like being pulled around in a hospital in handcuffs and stuff. And it was crazy. So finally I got out of that and they let me come back. They tried to threaten me and say, oh, since you had surgery, you got to go back to maximum now. I'm like, come on, man. Like, leave me alone. Like,
let me be.
Yeah, as soon as I made it to an actual, like full like work center, the judge heard about it and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna let him go," and they let me go, and I came back home to more inpatient halfway housing, to more probation, where almost by the hand of God, almost got in trouble again. I jumped back in the same lifestyle, started selling, started partying, started doing a lot more drugs. But when I got out, I was just trying to like numb the pain basically. I'm not the type of person where you can punish me or beat me up and I'm going to learn a lesson like that. Those things come from within. I guess that moves to the next conversation is like, finally I had my teeth back. I finished my probation. I didn't wind myself back up in prison. They had a day in court where they let me like totally go. So you finish your sentence, you finish your probation, you paid your fines, you're done. And I was dating this girl at that time who was like, just bad news, rest in peace. She overdosed. She actually took her own life.
Oh man.
Yeah, like a little bit after we broke up. But yeah, there was one day my father came to me before that happened, and he was just kind of like, "Hey, I haven't really heard from you. I don't know what's going on, but all your things are done. You have your teeth back. Why don't you leave? Why don't you get out of the country? Why don't you go somewhere else?" And this is one of those like touched by an angel, higher power, higher energy, God moments where the man that sent me all around the place, the man that I butted heads with and we fought all the time, he said it in such like a nice, not even nice, like a certain way. Like he must have had God speaking through him, a higher power speaking through him, because it was only one sentence. And I thought about it for a couple hours and I said yes. And that was November 4th, 2012, I believe, maybe 13. And I left. I mean, like all the drugs I was using, I was selling, all the circles I was in, my car, my home, everything I had, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let go of all of it. I said bye to the people I wanted to say bye to. And 3 days later, on my mom's birthday, November 7th, I was on a flight to India. And that's where, I didn't plan on changing my life. I didn't plan on like this, never doing the things I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I wanted something different.
Right.
But I hadn't really had a taste of that different, independent, quote unquote, good, progressive lifestyle until that point on my own and on my own accord without someone forcing me. And once I did, I feel like at that point, I was like, you know what? I want this life. I don't want to go back to selling this and that, to partying and staying up late and waking up, late just to party again and do it all over again, looking over my shoulder and fighting with my parents and having these relationships that are just driving me crazy. I want something different and better. And it wasn't a snap of the fingers. It really wasn't. I didn't just all of a sudden get better. And I wouldn't call myself like just better or anything now. I think it's like a daily thing that I have to work on. And I think anybody, as far as healing and like progression goes, it's a daily practice, something you implement, you do on a daily basis, for the rest of your life. But yeah, I started down that path, and that's when I started Hair Made in India. The idea for Hair Made in India, the company the hair extension company I own, actually wrote that business plan while I was in Alabama State Prison. We'd use my friend's snuck in cell phone to make calls to his sister and his girl and like figure out the market, ask about prices, what's hot on the marketplace and this and that. And when I was in India, a couple of years later after I was out, I was trying to figure out what to do. I was okay, I'm here, I'm off the drugs, my mind is clear, I'm working out every day, I'm getting healthier, I'm living on a farm, I'm eating good. What am I going to do? So I started looking at businesses, like restaurants, liquor stores, clubs, this and that, everything. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And this one-page business plan that I wrote in prison kind of came back into my mind. And I was in India already. So at that point, I rented a car, got an apartment, and started like touring around, figuring out what's going on in the business, all this and that. And then I made one Facebook post, and all my homegirls in high school were just like, "Oh man, Rocky, you got hair? Like, we gonna rock with you. Like, we gonna buy with you. Let's just bring it home, bring it home." And I took the money from. I keep having to back up. So the people that did this, the DA told my father, "Your son is a criminal and a drug dealer, and he wasn't supposed to be downtown. So we're not pressing criminal charges against the kids." They didn't even try. They didn't press any criminal case against them at all. But my father pursued a civil case. With that civil case that he pursued, there was an eventual settlement, and that settlement money is what I used to start Hair Made in India and buy like the first inventory batch, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. All kind of worked out together. And I spent a lot of that money too on different things. I was still partying back then, but eventually, like that became like this is what this money's going to go towards this. And yeah, I mean, at that point in my life, another little back up, I was like getting married as well to my now ex-wife. And so I was like, I want a wife, I want a family, I want a kid, I want a happy life, I want to work for it. I have a habit of rushing into like a lot of things.
No.
At least at this point, I was rushing into like better things instead of like the opposite way.
Right.
Still rushing it. So like I wasn't quite ready, for a marriage at that point. But I wanted to try, and I got back to the States and I got a job. I started teaching tennis, getting paid really well teaching tennis, and doing my best to like figure out what this new life of like, working, trying to, build a family up and, not doing what I used to do and not being around the people I used to be around, 24/7 anymore. But, I still had plenty of slips in there. I still had even times when I would, pop pills again, during that, smoking crazy amounts of weed, and drinking a little bit in excess, quite a bit in excess actually back then. So finally, during that time building the business, doing trade shows, trying to, establish a new relationship, we eventually tried California, which is where I live now. And the first couple weeks of being in California, we were living with her family, and we drove a minivan over there from Alabama. We split. She left. She flew back to India, and it was like, we're not going to be together anymore. So I had a choice once again. Like I was living homeless. I was living out of a minivan and in hostels. Didn't have much money. I had a little bit of inventory, and I had a little bit of a business that I had built up. And I was like, man, like all my family and friends like come home, and I almost thought about it, but I was like, no. If I come home now, I know what I'm gonna get back into with this mindset. Like I know who I'm gonna hang out with, how I'm gonna make money, and how I'm gonna spend my time. I don't want to do that, and I want to try this out. On the same hand, when I was in LA at that time, living homeless and drinking and partying, like I was also like kind of going downhill a little bit, like randomly like in bathrooms in Hollywood, doing a little bit of coke and stuff like that. Getting into the wrong crowds again. And once again, I was kind of just blessed. I had like kind of like a time on May 4th, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, maybe 4 years ago was when I made another big shift in my life. And I had finally got an apartment, as a felon with no work history, no bank account history, no rental history, it was so hard for me to get a spot. So eventually I had to like take a loan out where I paid back like a crazy amount of money. And I showed this apartment complex in my business bank account. I had a certain amount of money, and they finally let me rent it. And I moved in, and maybe a couple weeks later on Cinco de Mayo, I was texting with one of my good friends, Sean, who was living in Korea at that time. And he's always been like my friend, my best friend, my mentor, guidance, just a shining light in my life. And he was kind of telling me he's going to come. He's like, he thinks I should stop drinking and stop smoking. And that day, May 5th, I quit. I stopped pretty much everything, for a short period of time. I definitely still indulge in alcohol here and there. I have quit smoking marijuana since then, which is another shift later on. But I also implemented good things in my life, like yoga, meditation, breath work. And the biggest and most important thing for me was the YouTube tapes and books I started reading back then. Because until this point in my life, what I put in my ears and my eyes were, whatever's on TV, and then Boosie, Webby, Jeezy, Weezy, like rap, all like hardcore type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was like what I enjoy. I still like enjoy that music sometimes here and there. But now what I do is I consciously put Tony Robbins, Trent Shelton and Joe Dispenza, these kind of people in my ears and in front of my face, those kind of books. I've done that for about 4 or 5 years now. The last maybe months or so, I've slowed down a little bit because I'm refocusing, where I'm going in life once again. I put a lot, but that right there for maybe 3 years straight saved my life. Like I wish I could reach out to some of these people and meet them one day, like Ralph Smart, Robin Sharma, Tony Robbins, and these guys, and just be like, yo, like y'all literally saved me. Like y'all, your words, your positivity, the things you say and share, like I felt it and I listened to them all day long. Like Dr. Wayne Dyer, like all day long until, slowly I started shifting more and more and more. And, I eventually got a showroom downtown LA when I was living as well. And the business started picking up more and more. One thing it gives me chills right now still to talk about and say it out loud. But the more I started working on myself and cleaning up my life and getting my things together and reframing the way I think, what I let into my life, the energy I keep around me, the people I keep around me, my business just started going up and up and up, like at fast speeds. Mm-hmm. Until I got to a point where I was like, wow, like I need to like go back and do my accounting properly because I'm actually making money now. Like I need to actually like fix this and like make it a proper business. Mm-hmm. That's what I started working on, and I did that. And eventually, I was living downtown in this like beautiful 1,500 square foot loft in front of the Staples Center. And, my ex-wife was there with me for some time and had left, from there as well when she came back. And I hated it. I was miserable. I was making money. I could do what I wanted to do. I was partying. I was what I thought I wanted to be like 10 years ago. Right. I was, wow, I got it now. I got a car. I got a house. I can get girls. I can go to the club. I can smoke my weed. I can do this and that. And I'm making money legally, doing all that. Mm-hmm. But I was still miserable. And I didn't know why, and like COVID happened. And that was just like, honestly, like as much as people got hurt, in COVID, my heart goes out to everybody. It was a blessing for me, like it really was like such a big blessing. And then when I was going through it in the beginning, just like everybody else, I didn't think it was a blessing. I was just like, I hate it. Like,
right. I'm stuck in the house.
But I shifted my business, doubled out. I think I'm doing maybe 5x the revenue I was doing during that time from the things I changed and fixed during that time. And I let go of everything I had down there. I had a house full of things, cars, clothes, suits, shoes, beds, electronics, and everything. And I gave all that stuff, PlayStations, like to the homeless people around downtown LA and some of my neighbors. And I moved out. And my friends thought I was going crazy. I stopped talking to everybody again, just back away from everybody. My parents were mad at me, like, what are you doing? It's COVID and you want to move out of your house, the nice house that you have. And the girl that works for me now, AQ, even she was like, Rocky, like, this is your business. Like, you just fly. Like, what are you doing? And I was just like, man, it doesn't feel right anymore. I got to go. I was scared too because I was like, that's the only place I ever like rented on my own. So I was like, man, they might bring up my prison thing again. I might not be able to replace.
Right.
And funny story, the first time I applied to another place, I told them, I was like, so like, I had this thing that happened to me and I got in trouble and went to prison like 11 years ago. And the Spanish lady, she laughed, like, oh, don't worry about it. We only go back 7 years. Most of them do. And I was like, I was so worried about it.
Thank you, Jesus.
I was like, you understand how worried I've been about that one sentence right there, even to speak out loud. But from there, everything worked out. I moved into a hostel again, which I love. Hearing my story from like going to military schools and boot camps, I grew up in that environment where you're around people. And then as an adult, to choose that environment and to have like men and women travelers around in a hostel, I love it. I love being there, especially if I'm alone, not in a relationship. It's just that's the best place for me because I don't like to be alone as much. I like to have like people around me, and I can still find my alone time when people are around me. I'm not the type you can just be like, hey, like let's go call me right now. I'm like, no, I'm sitting on my bed, I'm chilling, you do your own thing. Right. So it really worked out good for me. And I opened up a spot in Beverly Hills out here in West LA. And from there, we've just literally month after month and like improved our systems, improved our marketing, improved our sales. The girl that works for me started out barely making much at all. A year fast forward from that, she's about to buy her own place in LA. Bought herself cheap out here. She's doing very well. So it's not even just me. It's like I'm finally at the point, which is why I want to start a business, which is on my wall actually. I want to just, one of my biggest things I want to manifest and goals in life is to have the ability to give opportunity to my circle and my people and people that I love and care about and spread, everything I've been blessed with to them and grow them and my family at the same time as well and to travel. And, and that's from where we were, we were talking about when I was a kid to where I am right now. That's the story basically. And now it's just, I'm changing everything once again. I'm letting go of Hair Made India a little bit and moving into coaching and speaking. And that's why we're doing podcasts now is, I want to eventually start speaking around the prisons, the high schools around the world, around the U.S., to share my story and to kind of like be a source of like inspiration and strength and hope for people and kids and even men and women and adults and children that have went through my same struggles or similar struggles that might think that this identity that they're in right now, living, as a single parent or living, paycheck to paycheck or addicted to drugs or like in major physical trauma or whatever it may be, because there's so many different, things that's going on these days that they can make it out of that. And, I don't care if it sounds cheesy or corny anymore because I know this, it literally all starts right here and right here. It does. And the more you work on this, when I do this as well, like that's being connected to the universe, to God, to the source, to the things that created us. And when you really like get your mind quiet enough and dive into that connection, magic happens.
And I believe that's what COVID did. It's made everything quiet and it slowed everything down so where we could connect better without all the interruptions that we're used to in this crazy life. So that's why I say your story, man, it's insane from boot camp to, oh my God, you said so much from boot camp to prison to back to prison, back to boot camp to getting stabbed in the car, getting shot at, thinking it's funny. It's insane from all that to now you're a successful businessman with the lucrative business in the hair business, which that was in itself is like, what a turnaround from, I'm just going to call it what you was, from being a thug to now being a CEO and being a motivational speaker and an author and a podcaster and, setting the example of what you can do in spite of. It just sounds unreal. That's what I say. It's a movie. It's a Netflix series. It's a lot. It's a lot, dude.
Actually, because there's so many small stories in between there. I've been trying to write a book about it, and I keep like getting to a place. I'm like, man, I forgot about that story, and it's crazy. Like, I gotta tell them about that. So I go back into it, and it's like, oh, like, how am I gonna write this thing? There's too much stuff happening.
Your draft's about this thick right now.
And then I have journals all back when I was in prison, when I was in boot camp. So I'm looking.
Oh, really?
I'm trying to like remember more. And I remember all every time I read it again, like, oh, I forgot about that story when, like, even when I was in boot camp, a kid hung himself on a basketball net, and I had forgot about that until I read the journals, and I was like, how did I forget?
Oh my God!
Yeah, that was the day before I got there. The entire facility was locked down. So like,
jeez,
I'm trying to put all that in there, so like eventually when I do write this book, you can see like the entirety of like the of like through my eyes, basically. Like
The whole growth of it all. Well, it's definitely a book I want to read, listen to on Audible. I'm an Audible girl, so. But oh my God. But okay, so how can people contact you if they want to have you on as a guest or for you to speak or whatever?
Definitely, yeah. So my email address on the screen, rockycandola@gmail.com. Also, if you visit my website, it's just rockycandola.com. There's a scheduling link on there. You can schedule with me, or I'm not one of those robot hands-off people. My direct phone number is 228-596-5678. Just pick up the phone and give me a call, whether it's about hair, podcasting, speaking, coaching, or if you just want to like vent. I would love to just listen to you and hear. This is what I'm doing now, and I don't really. I've got my businesses. I started another couple businesses as well, and I've gotten to the point where they don't require my 24-hour day attention anymore. And talking with Miss Lillian, being on podcasts, sharing this story, trying to help inspire people, that's what fulfills my heart, and that's what I'm putting my time, money, and energy into these days now. So reach out to me. I'm here.
And funny thing, I know you're not lying because I know that, like, if your customers have a complaint, like most companies, you actually talk to them. Yeah. You don't send them to a customer service rep. You do it, which is so unusual.
Even if they're mad at 1 o'clock in the morning, a little bit tipsy, yelling at me, I'm still talking to them. I'm like, hey, slow down a little bit. Let's get on the same page real quick.
Right, let me get some coffee. Hold on. Just give me a second. All right, now go. That's amazing within itself. So I was going to ask you what advice you would give somebody, but you already did. You already said it as far as just believe in here, believe in God, and believe in yourself. You can do whatever you put your heart to.
Exactly. I would say that definitely like quieting your mind and getting your distractions, music, TV, food, even people. Taking a little bit of time to get quiet like COVID did for us and getting all that noise out of your head and really getting in touch with what's going on inside of you, meditating, all that stuff. And I don't even do it enough as I should anymore as when I first started. When I first started, it was like a medicine. I had to have it. And now when I noticed myself getting off track, even the relationship I'm in currently, like last night I was feeling antsy. I wanted to go out or something. And she's like, I am too. Sit with it. And I was like, at first I wanted to be like, yeah, really? Like, that's what you gotta say? And I was like, oh, she's right though. Like I gotta those are the times as I've grown in my spirituality and my development that I have to check myself and be like, okay, I'm feeling like this, slow it down again, because slowing it down is what helped me in the first place.
Right. All right. Okay, so here's your last two questions. You ready?
Ready for them.
Okay. Which is funny because I kept kind of alluding to it, but here we go. If you could have any actor portray you in your life story, who would it be and why? You got to find one, apparently, because this is a life story that needs to be told.
No, right. Because I was thinking, I wonder if it could be an American actor or it'd have to be an Indian actor. I guess, do I have to choose one of them?
You can choose. It's your movie. You choose.
Yeah. I guess I'm aiming high, but I really like Will Smith. I love what he does now too, especially. I would say either Will Smith or an Indian actor named Shah Rukh Khan.
What's he been in?
So what?
What has he been in?
Shah Rukh Khan. So he's in Bollywood, not in Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he's been a favorite actor of mine since I was young. I feel like he could portray it well. I feel like maybe Will Smith could do it. I think Denzel might do a little better because he has a little more of the
edge.
Around the edges, yeah. Type of vibe, like one of them two.
Okay. Your life is a little edgy. Okay, last question. If you could have any song be your theme song when you walked into a room, what would it be and why?
So I hate to say it, but it almost has to be Rocky because of my name. It's just every time I've ever been on stage, anywhere or in schools, and that's always what it is. And now you know me and my name is Rocky. It's just like it fits. It goes well together.
Yeah, because you're getting stronger. Oh my God! Now I gotta watch Rocky this week. Just,
Do a binge night.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time I did it. Start from the first. And the funny thing, even when I watch it, you know how you watch a movie and you've seen it 1,000 times, you see something that you missed, and it's like, how the heck did I miss this scene?
Yep.
What was I doing? But yeah, love me some Rocky. Love you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, like I said, you need to have finish this book and get it out there because your story definitely needs to be told on a global scale. It really does because it's you need. I mean, really, you shouldn't even be alive today from all what you went through. So it's nothing but the grace of God that you're still sitting here, still standing.
Seriously.
So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me. Always love being here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon.
Definitely. Take care. Bye, everybody.
You too. I want to thank Rocky for being on the show, and I want to thank all of you for watching. And like I said, his story is so unbelievable, and it just proves to you what God can do if you just settle and listen to Him. So I want to thank all of you, and I will not be having a show this Friday, but I will be back Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for another great episode. And you guys have a great week, a wonderful weekend. Be blessed, be safe. And as always, thanks for joining your one and only Worldly Church Girl.